many may say has been a long time coming, given how this past year has been with him at the German giant. Stevie, his agent said it's because he needs a new challenge. Are you buying that one? Or has he just burnt all his bridges at Bayern?
I think he's certainly bumped some bridges. It seems the past couple of seasons he's had a lot more to say as far as criticising not only his team but the board as well. So I'm not shocked that this is coming around. He's 29 years of age.
But he's a pretty big name, and if you do have a look at his stats, he's had an impressive career at Bayern Munich, which is something that we naturally expect. So can Bayern afford to lose someone like this?
I don't see how Bayern don't get rid of this guy. You know, if I'm a player in that dressing room and I hear our so-called star man complaining every 2 minutes about not getting passed to, not being created enough chances for him, it's all me. So I don't think Bayern will have a problem selling Lewandowski. They will get a fantastic price for a 29-year-old who very shortly will be turning the other way in his career. And of course there are plenty of young talented Germans that they can pluck from the Bundesliga and do what they do best. So Lewandowski is leaving, in my opinion, because he wants to win the Champions League. You know, he's had ample opportunity with Bayern. They've got to the final stages of the Champions League, and he clearly sees that they're never going to be good enough to beat the likes of Real Madrid.
So does he go there now then? Do you think they'll welcome him back with open arms and have a place for him?
I would think he is absolutely perfect for them. In my opinion, Benzema is on the wane. I think Ronaldo's on the wane. And of course, there's talk of Bale leaving. So it seems like it's a match made in heaven.
All right, thanks so much to Stevie Nichols. So Robert Lewandowski seems to be on the way out of Bayern Munich, and Stevie thinks that Real Madrid would be a perfect fit for him. Stevie Nicol back in the house, and he is absolutely excited to tackle some of these rumours in Rumour Rate. Can't wait. There's a bit of a lull, Stevie, before the World Cup, we know. So rumours are going to keep us company until then. All right, let's start off with this one. It seems that Gareth Bale is definitely on his way out of Real Madrid, or that's what many suspect. Would a move back to Spurs be a hit or a miss?
It would be fantastic for Spurs, but I just don't see how it happens. You know, the wages that he is on, never mind the transfer fee, would obliterate what Spurs do as far as a wage structure. So for that reason, for me, this is absolutely a miss.
So a big old miss for you on this one, Stevie. Speaking of Spurs, Eriksen, can they afford to lose this man? But when Barcelona usually come knocking, would that be a hit for him or a miss?
Well, I think if they let him go, that would alert other players to maybe be looking elsewhere as well. But as far as going to Barcelona for Eriksen, yes, could he play for Barcelona? I think he could, but does he start? So why is he going to leave Spurs where he starts every game if he's fit and available? So I'm sorry, this is a miss as well. It's not happening.
Another miss in Stevie Nichols' book. What about this one? Alisson hitting close to your heart. Correct. Liverpool getting some reinforcements here over that Champions League heartbreak. Would you like to see?
Well, I'm not quite sure that we need a goalkeeper. I mean, Karius was just unlucky. Yeah, right.
Oh, I was like...
Listen, this is basically about the price.
Yeah.
I would love to have Alisson at Liverpool. As far as I know, Liverpool have already made an offer for this guy. It's about the price now. So I'm going to say Liverpool have to get him. I'm going to say this is a hit.
Yeah. So harsh on your goalkeepers. Anyways, moving on. Mauro Icardi to Chelsea. Do you like that one?
Yes, I do. Icardi, top scorer last year in Serie A, was top scorer a couple of years previous to that. So this is a proven goal scorer. Chelsea needs somebody else other than Hazard, in my opinion, that can change a game. So I think this again will happen. Again, I think it's a matter of money. If the price is right, this is a hit as well, and it would be a great move to get Chelsea back in the top four.
All right, well, you know, it wouldn't be Rumour Rata without Manchester United somehow involved. Mario Mandzukic to Man United. Do you like that one?
It's a strange one.
Yes.
The guy has shown that, you know, he made his name as a centre forward, but at Juve he moved out to a wider position and ended up doing some defending. I don't see how it makes any sense though.
It's just one of those swirling around.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see how Mandzukic actually plays at United. He shouldn't play ahead of Rashford. I don't think he should play ahead of Martial in a wide position. And he certainly isn't playing ahead of Lukaku.
No,
so it makes no sense for Mandzukic on a personal level. So I think this is a miss.
Big old miss. Well,
Yeah.
you know the situation is a bit delicate between Rashford and Martial and Jose Mourinho, so we'll see. Might not be as far-fetched as we think. All right, but Stevie is still saying that one is a miss. Thanks so much to Stevie Nicol. Keep track of all of the rumors that are swirling around and when we tackle them here at ESPNFC.com.
Jeff Carlisle's article has been causing a storm when it comes to US soccer. An expose into where it all went wrong. As we welcome Jeff Carlisle into the show. Now, Jeff, you spoke to 18 different sources and putting this expose together. What fact or what revelation in particular stunned you?
Well, there were a lot of revelations that stunned me. I mean, in no particular order. You know, to hear the players talk of complacency, of talking of fatigue, you know, that's really, it's on both the coaching staff and the players to raise their hands and speak up and say, hey, you know, I don't think I have it today. Now, granted, the players wouldn't get to where they are by begging out of big matches, but again, I think that's on the coaching staff. You know, there were complaints about the tactics. You know, certainly that's been out in the open for a while now. And there was also a consensus that, you know, this is a U.S. team that has kind of lost its identity, lost its fight. And I think we saw that in particular at the end of the Klinsmann era. You know, when you see a game like Costa Rica where, you know, the goals go in and the heads go down and you don't really see guys trying to rally around each other and try to turn the match around. So certainly there were a lot of factors that went into this World Cup qualifying failure, and some ran deeper than others. But certainly there were a lot of revelations, I thought, that surprised me a little bit.
What stood out for you?
There's plenty that stood out. It was great work by Jeff.
Well, I'm sure he's happy.
The fact that ex-players and ex-national team players of those certain regimes would go on anonymous. Put your name on it. Own it. You were part of that failure. Own it. If you're an ex-national team player that's a decade apart or 2 decades apart, as well, own it. We're very soft in our culture now when it comes to U.S. soccer. Things like this complacency happen because of the culture we've instilled. That bothers me. When we talk about coaches throwing players under the bus, and in the same breath, you throw said coach under the bus, in the same article, you throw players that were in that game under the bus. This is all a cycle. Listen, I was part of one of those regimes, one of those cycles with Jurgen Klinsmann. Anytime you're in any team, and Stevie will tell you, Ali will tell you, you pull back the curtain, you're going to see lots of problems. The good teams keep those problems under wraps. The good teams control those fires before they start. This was not a good team. From Jurgen to Bruce, that crossover generation was not good. You had players who were upset at the previous coach because they weren't of prominent roles. You had new players that were upset because other players were still getting opportunities. Everybody plays tired. I have no problem with the players saying, I felt tired. I do have a problem with Bruce Arena saying, oh, that's not true. The medical staff was there. We had the stats, everything they said otherwise. If a player says he's tired. Players usually won't tell you they're tired. They won't tell you they're sore. They won't tell you they're injured because they want to be there through it all. This just shows me how much of a mess it actually was and that the finger pointing is just getting started.
Ali?
As I'm reading the article and I'm listening to Jeff and I listen to Hercules, the one thought that crosses my mind time and time again is you needed a draw against Trinidad and Tobago, against a B team of Trinidad and Tobago, and yet we're circling around the same issues of how soft this team is. Who do we blame? Who do we say? Who's responsible? That guy's responsible. No, I'm not. It's that guy. It's this other guy. The truth of the matter is that everybody who was in that locker room bears responsibility. Everybody. Nobody is in any way can walk out of that locker and say, I did my job. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the issue. And I think it's the bigger picture. That there are players that came out of that locker room and said, I had nothing to do with me. That doesn't stick with me. That mentality doesn't get you anywhere. And it's a mentality that was common within that group.
Complacency is a word that just keeps cropping up. Stevie?
Do you know, I find it scandalous that there are so many players that are more than willing to turn around and throw every other person involved under the bus but themselves. I didn't read one word about anybody standing up and saying, you know what, I could have done a bit more. And as for players complaining about tactics and being tired, listen, if all you have to do is beat a Trinidad B team,
not even
I should be able to just throw 11 players, that 11 US players onto the field and say, on you go, get on with it, and they should still have won. I can't stand when players, going back to Herc's point, number one, will spill the beans but don't want their name mentioned. And the fact that they actually have the gumption, having been part of an absolute disaster, to try and blame others except themselves, I find that a joke.
The other thing I would say is that, okay, now we know that the situation within that locker room, not only leading up to that game, but throughout the qualifying campaign, was all over the place. So it gives you even more reason to say, you know what, all these guys that were here, minus a couple, out. Get out. That's it. We're done with you. We've seen enough of you. Let's go see what else we got in this country with soccer players. So let's see if the young generation is ready to step in and play. You don't have a meaningful game coming up.
Yeah.
Huh? So might as well write it out now and see what you have. And then evaluate those players then. Because clearly, those guys that were in that locker room were not good enough. They proved it, that they were not good enough. The results proved it. It's not hypothetical. It's on results, right? We saw it on results. They proved that they were not good enough to get the United States into the World Cup.
You know what it is, Ali? It's arrogance.
Oh, well,
a lot of these players are in the Premier League, have played in Mexico, have played in Bundesliga. They're good enough in their league, so we should do it. Do you remember the day before that game? It was the hashtag River to Russia. The players crossing what was the flooding outside of that. And then the Trinidad players were the only ones who took that to heart, who then played with pride. You can't just put the jersey on and expect that jersey to play for you. That's where it's a problem. All of a sudden, since 1999, the U.S. has been in contention for every single first place in a World Cup cycle. And that's been good enough. We've now made it. We're one of the top dogs in North America, in CONCACAF. It's not that easy. You have to continue to keep proving yourself. And like Ali said, if you don't, you're not good enough, this is what's going to happen. So there needs to be a clean sweep. Except for maybe 2, 3, 4 players, it needs to be a clean break.
The biggest problem with the majority of this group is they judge themselves or how good or how bad they are by the size of the bank balance, not by what they've done on the field.
Oh, 2, 3 or 4 players. Who have we got? Pulisic?
Yes, Pulisic. Many will disagree, but I think Michael Bradley still has a place with this team. I think you need a born leader like that, a player who has been there and that to kind of breed the new generation in, bring them in, groom them, so to speak. I think Josie still has a place. But other than that, I'm scratching my head to really come up with names.
I would say not only do you keep Pulisic, but you give him a more important role. Maybe age is a problem. Maybe people are getting nervous and say, well, no, he's too young. Hold on a second. He's far more experienced than a lot of those players that are walking into that locker room because what he does on a daily basis and the competition that he's participated in. Now you say, all right, Christian, here we go, buddy. This is it. All right? You're going to ride this team, and the team is going to ride with you. You're going to be the leader of this squad. Maybe you don't want to have this role, but at some point you have to stand up yourself and say, yeah, okay, I am not willing to accept what happened in this qualifying campaign, and I'm going to do something about it, and whoever's with me, let's go. If you're not on board, see you later.
And Dan, I apologize, but if there's one player that this elimination, that this fiasco has hit the most, has hampered the most, it's Christian Pulisic. I mean, we saw the type of season, after that Trinidad game, the type of season he had with Dortmund. We just saw him a few nights ago with the U.S. men's national team. He didn't want to be on the field. If you don't think he's ready just to be done with this and just have a clean break and start over, this kid, what could have been in the World Cup, same thing that was with Landon Donovan, with DeMarcus Beasley, giving a player of that young age, of that caliber, an opportunity to showcase his skills with the rest of the world. That platform, I think, would have springboarded him to something greater.
Jeff, you followed the national team for so many years now. Where would you go from here?
In terms of players, in terms of coach, I think in the short term, I think Dave Sarakin's doing the right thing. I think you need to give guys like Weston McKennie, Matt Miazga, Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think you need to get those guys in the field as much as possible. You need to build for the next cycle. You need to build the core, the spine of this team. I mean, it has to be completely redone, I think. In terms of a coach, it remains to be seen what's going to happen in terms of the GM. I mean, obviously Ernie Stewart is the name on everybody's lips in terms of getting that role, but who does he hire or who does he recommend to be hired? Whether he goes domestic, whether he looks overseas. I mean, I'm on record as saying I would love to see Tata Martino, just given the breadth of his experience. He's coaching at MLS. He's getting to see the American player up close. He's managed big clubs like Barcelona. He's managed modest clubs like Newell's Old Boys in Argentina. So I just think the breadth of his experience, I think he would be a great pick. Now, whether he wants the job or not, I think that remains to be seen. He said on record that he's happy in Atlanta and he's not interested in moving on. But I think he's got the resume and I think he's got the experience both in the United States and elsewhere to be a great fit. Again, we'll see how these new players progress. I mean, a lot's being made about Josh Sargent. He's still got a long way to go. I mean, I'm placing a little bit more faith in guys who have proved themselves overseas a little bit more, like Miazga, like Weston McKennie, like Cameron Carter-Vickers, guys who have actually been on the field. But it's, again, this team needs to be completely rebuilt. There's no doubt about it.
FC Cincinnati confirmed as the latest expansion franchise to MLS, some suggesting that this could prove to be the final nail in the coffin for Columbus Crew. What do you think?
I'm not so sure that those two things are linked. If the team ends up staying in Columbus, it's a ready-made rivalry, the Ohio rivalry. You heard Don Garber talking yesterday about San Antonio, and certainly if the Columbus franchise moves to Austin, Texas, I mean, that would put a huge damper on any possible team in San Antonio. So, we'll see what happens. But certainly Cincinnati has proven just with their fan base, they've been a hugely successful team in the USL. I think they've got the ownership to invest in the team, and obviously they're building a stadium. So I think as a city, I think Cincinnati's a great fit for MLS.
Ali, you've been one of the most vocal supporters of Save the Crew. Does this concern you?
Of course it does. Because it's impossible to get excited about FC Cincinnati without having a real understanding that 2 hours north of Cincinnati, Columbus Crew are all over the place. They don't know whether they're coming or they're going. The fans don't know whether they're coming or they're going. The players don't know whether they're coming or they're going. The ownership is all over the place as well in terms of what the process is like. And so when you have that uncertainty on one side of the league, then you cannot ignore that when you evaluate, okay, here comes an expansion team. Well, that's great. That's beautiful. And congratulations to MC Cincinnati and the city of Cincinnati, the way that they prepare themselves and the fact that they've been awarded an expansion bid. They have a plan in place. I'm excited for you. But I'm not excited about Columbus. I'm certainly not. And if the reasoning is that we are willing to welcome expansion bids and expansion teams into the league at the expense of an original franchise, that's where I have a problem. That should not be happening. We should not be celebrating this side of the league and forgetting this other side of the league.
If you haven't done so yet, be sure to go to ESPNFC.com and complete our match predictor for the World Cup. Yesterday, Hercules Gomez did it, made a bit of a hash of it, technically, Stevie.
No surprise.
I'm sure you can do better today. Let's start off with the group stages, shall we? Interesting start. You've got Russia. Russia are terrible going through.
Well, with Salah being injured, I think that depletes Egypt. Because he's their main guy. Russia being at home, I think that's why they go through.
Spain, Portugal, France, Denmark, Argentina, Nigeria. Nigeria ahead of Croatia.
I just think Nigeria are the team that are going to upset a few.
Brazil, Switzerland.
A tough one. It was either Costa Rica or Switzerland. I've gone for Switzerland because of the strength.
Max Brels have got Mexico going through to the semi-finals. You haven't even got them getting out of the group stages.
No, because the deciding game will be between Sweden and Mexico, and I think Sweden have shown getting to the World Cup that when it matters, they get it done.
How hard was it to put England through?
It wasn't easy. You're so lucky that it was either them or Tunisia and Panama. So even I could not put England through.
Colombia and Poland, meanwhile, make up the round of 16. Let's take it through to the bracket then, shall we? Starting on this side, Spain, Russia. Who have you got?
I think this is pretty straightforward, no question. Spain does Russia, who'll do well to get there anyway.
Argentina, Denmark. Any argument for Denmark?
No. They'll be stuffy, but not good enough to beat
They'll
Argentina.
be stuffy?
Yeah.
Is that...
That's a term, yeah. It's a term.
Germany, Switzerland.
Yeah, it's got to be Germany. Again, Switzerland will be strong opponents, but just they don't have the quality that Germany have.
Now, what about this, Mr. Nicol? Colombia, England.
I'm going to say Colombia, just because I hate England anyway.
Fair enough.
But because Colombia are just better than England.
Really?
As
Much
a unit,
better. Blah.
as individuals,
Good.
you name it, Colombia are better than England.
All right, then, Colombia to go through to the quarterfinals. Let's take it to the other side of the bracket then, shall we? Starting off with Uruguay against Portugal.
I just don't see Portugal producing too much. They'll be stuffy, and that's
It's a new word you've made up.
and that's not good. That means that you'll just work hard. So
Right.
I don't think Portugal are good enough.
Never heard you use the word stuffy before.
Well, you better get used to it.
Right,
I'm going to go Uruguay.
Uruguay?
Yes.
Meanwhile, France, Nigeria.
Nigeria will be very stuffy. No, listen, you got to go for France. You look at the quality.
Go on then, just put it through. You don't have to explain everything.
Well, don't ask me then.
Brazil, Sweden,
Brazil,
Belgium, Poland.
tough one. I'm going to go for the individual talent
Right.
that Belgium have over
Okay,
Poland.
I thought you hate
So that-
Lukaku.
Oh, he won't be playing, will he?
Right, okay, let's take it through to the semi-finals. There were the quarter-finals, Uruguay, France.
I've got to go with France again. Griezmann, going to be a handful. Sorry, Uruguay. France go through.
You're not really sorry.
I am.
Brazil, Belgium.
Brazil. I don't see him beating Brazil.
Okay, all right then.
Not even Belgium.
What a semi-final that'll be. Meanwhile,
Not even Belgium with Lukaku.
let's just take it to the other side. Spain, Argentina.
I just think that as good as both sides are individually, Spain are a far better team.
Right.
And even though Argentina do have Messi, it's not going to be enough.
No.
Spain, for me, takes this.
Meanwhile, Germany, Colombia.
Yeah, I just can't back against the Germans. Colombia, on their day, can beat anybody in this tournament, but it depends what day it is. And on this day, it won't be good enough.
What day it is?
Yeah.
Colombia can beat anyone.
Colombia, on their day, can beat any team in this tournament.
Really?
They just don't have the consistency.
Where do you get this from?
It's a World Cup.
Where's this
You've got to do it
Colombia
over
love
a period
coming
of time.
Okay, let's take it to the semi-finals.
Did
then.
you watch the qualifiers or not?
Of course I did.
Yeah, clearly not.
France against Brazil.
Can't go against Brazil. As good as France are, Brazil for me are
so
the
could Colombia
side.
beat Brazil on their day?
If Brazil are at the worst and
Well, no,
Colombia
I
is
mean-
at their best, then yes.
That's complete change.
Don't ask the question if you don't want the answer.
Spain against Germany.
I'm going to go with Spain because of De Gea.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So then, Brazil, Spain in the 2018 World Cup final. According to Steve Nicol, who will win it all?
Brazil, the best team
I think
at
if you press
this,
that, look, there you go.
the best team at this tournament. No question for me. Favourites, the team.
City will evaluate everything. Obviously, Manchester City will be very welcome and couldn't be turned down. Positive stuff there, of course, from Jorginho's agent. Paolo, how likely is this deal to get done, and how good of an addition would he be to the City squad?
I think it's very likely to get done. It's no secret that Pep Guardiola has been quite a big admirer of this Napoli team over the last couple of years, and I think there's also no question that Jorginho is the man that really makes that team tick. Everyone likes to focus on the attack, and the attack is sensational, but he's the guy who picks the passes. He's the guy who orchestrates things from the centre of the park. Of course, you look at that Man City team and there's so much competition for places. You think, will he be able to take on quite such a central role? Will he be able to play the pivot for the whole team like he did in Naples? But he's a tremendous passer of the ball. He's got great vision. I think he's a fantastic footballer. So why not, I guess?
Paolo, is it a case that he would come in as cover for Fernandinho? Is it that kind of like for like, or is he a bit more attacking?
A less physical player than Fernandinho, I'd say. He's not necessarily more attacking. He's often sort of compared in Italy with Andrea Pirlo. There's some comparison there for certain, but he's very much that. Well, there's differences with Pirlo. He is that sort of metronome. He's the guy who likes to just sit in the middle of the park and orchestrate. Again, play the quarterback, be the guy who sees everything and picks the pass that starts the move. I think that's really his role there. It's not even the final assist. It's not the ball over the top that unleashes the attacker. It's the guy who sees the beginning of the move and plays that first ball a lot of the time.
Apparently Manchester City just in for a couple of players this summer. Jorginho, one of them. Riyad Mahrez, the other one. And before we discuss what you make of that, boys, let me just remind you of what Manchester City's attacking lineup looks like. Aguero, Jesus, Sané, Sterling, De Bruyne, Silva, Fernandinho, Silva, Gundogan, Delphin, Foden. Do you need Riyad Mahrez?
Listen, as a coach, I've said it before, it's good to have great players, but there comes a time when you can have too big a squad and then you start getting grumblings from people that are not playing. I mean, if I'm Bernardo Silva, for example, I'm sitting in the house and I'm thinking, hold on a second, I've only just managed at the end of the season to get a game more regularly. Now they're bringing a guy in who plays in my position. I mean, so sometimes you can actually cause a little bit of unrest. As good as it is to have good players and plenty of them, you can cause a little friction by having too many.
They just have too many players that are similar to Riyad Mahrez. So if you're going to bring in a player into Manchester City, it's because this player is going to improve you. It's going to make you better, even better than what you were the year before, or gives you flexibility as Jorginho would for Fernandinho, where you can give a rest to Fernandinho, maybe Jorginho steps into that position. Riyad Mahrez is going to have to get in the back of the line. That
Pick
is
a number, yeah.
Yeah, that is led by De Bruyne and David Silva and Bernardo Silva and so on and so forth, and Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling. He doesn't. Where is the space for him? It's just not there.
So how much of a consideration is it from his part? This may be a stupid question, obviously Leicester at the moment. Would it make you think about that move to City? If you thought, well, actually, how much playing time am I really going to get? Or is there not even a consideration because you're going to Manchester City and you know the success that you have with them?
It really is. It really is about why you're going. If you want to play football, you're not going to Manchester City. If you want to go and just be a bit part player, take the money,
Win trophies
pick
as well,
up pick up a few medals, then that's the place to go. If you're a real man, a real footballer, if you've got anything about you, you don't settle for sitting on your backside other than 12 or 13 games a season. I don't call that a proper footballer.
Can I just say that this may be a reaction by Riyad Mahrez in that he didn't get the transfer when he wanted it. Maybe he was going to Arsenal, maybe he was going elsewhere. Now this is his opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to take it. I want out of Leicester.
The possibility of Icardi going to Chelsea. Is this simply, Paolo, than putting the fact that Sarri may be going to Stamford Bridge and therefore, of course, he'd want Icardi to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Icardi, again, is someone who would really look at that necessarily as the right career move for them right now. Icardi's waited a long time to play in the Champions League at Inter. He's often talked about being happy in Milan. Whether that's true or not, I find it sort of hard to believe that he would wait all this time to finally qualify for that competition and then immediately go and sign for someone who's not going to be taking part in it.
What do you think of Icardi?
You know what? That is a lot of goals playing in a team that's not particularly great. And if you're the top scorer in Serie A, well, he was last year, and a couple of seasons ago as well. This guy has got talent. This guy scores goals. This guy should be in the Champions League, and he should be with one of the top teams.
I mentioned Sarri there. Obviously, Ancelotti coming in now at Napoli. So what happens to Sarri and his future, Paolo?
Well, for the moment, Aurelio De Laurentiis, who's the Napoli owner, is certainly known for digging his heels in. He's doing exactly that. He's saying, hey, we've signed a new manager. We've got someone else coming in to lead our first team, but we haven't actually cut our contract with this guy. So if you want him, come pay the €7 million release clause. Now, that release clause actually only runs till the end of May, and he's also saying if you don't do it by the time the release clause is in effect, then we might charge you even more. So yeah, De Laurentiis is trying to extract his value from the situation, and honestly, if past experience is our guide, he's pretty good at doing that. He's not a man to back down easily in these negotiations.
The future of Morata very much up in the air as well, Paolo. Links him returning to Italy. Obviously, his reputation in somewhat tatters after that first season in the Premier League. I imagine still quite a few clubs would have him in Serie A.
Yeah, absolutely. Juventus would have him back for certain, but I think that the issue always for Italian clubs is that the price has to be right. The money is not there in the same way as it is in the Premier League. What Chelsea paid for him is not what Chelsea would get for him from a club like Juventus. Juventus would definitely take him if they thought the deal was there because he did good things for them during a couple of seasons in Turin.
Would you stick with him? Any chance?
I'll stick with him, but not as a top-line striker. But then again, he's paid like a top-line striker, and so that's the issue here, is that how much are you willing to live with a guy that really didn't answer the call? And he was disappointing, not only to Chelsea, but more importantly to the panel of this show.
Yeah, because I think you all said that you'd have Morata over Lukaku.
Yeah, we were all wrong. I'll tell you that much.
He had a standout season for Roma, didn't he, Alisson? And there's a lot of speculation about his future at the moment, Paolo. We're hearing incredible numbers, like 80 million for a switch maybe to the Premier League. I suppose, is he worth it? And could it happen?
I always find it hard to say whether a player's worth a number nowadays, because you can always find a player to compare him to which is good value and a player to compare him to where it's bad value. I think Roma are serious, though, about asking for that sort of money. He's under contract until, I think, 2021. James Pallotta, the owner, said only about a month ago, we're not selling him at all. So I think it's going to take a big sum of money to get him. And I do think he's a phenomenal goalkeeper. I mean, you think about all the praise that Ederson has had in the Premier League this season. Alisson is the guy keeping Ederson out of the Brazil starting lineup, and deservedly so. He's been phenomenal for Roma this season.
So then, Steve Nicol. Paolo makes a good point. Numbers don't really matter anymore.
No, correct.
But budgets are only so big. So if, for example, Liverpool have 100 million to spend in the summer, that's what Jurgen Klopp is given.
Yep.
Would you spend 80 million on Alisson?
In a heartbeat.
Really? That'd be it?
Do you know, we kind of sat here and mulled over the price tag for Van Dijk.
Yep.
Did Van Dijk make a difference? My goodness, did he make a difference? This team was transformed with Van Dijk in it. So you imagine what would happen if they got Alisson? I mean, you know, if you want to go for the big prizes, right, you need to have good players. And good players cost money. But you know what? Liverpool have the money. So if you've got the money, you spend it tomorrow or in 10 minutes' time if you get the opportunity.
But you're putting all your eggs in a goalkeeping basket, considering how you could reinforce the squad elsewhere with that money.
So do I buy 2 average players or 1 great player? I buy the great player.
Do you agree, Ali?
Well, if you're sure that Alisson is your guy and Liverpool is sure that this is the guy they want to go after, they better get on it quickly. Because then this guy has a good World Cup with Brazil, and then maybe others come into play and say, you know what, we want a piece of that too. And that only raises the price of the player. So if you're sure this is your guy, commit to it, make a decision prior to the World Cup.
Welcome into Extra Time, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get to your questions, let's talk, shall we, about the tabloid splash about our very own Xhaka Islam and his hatred of Jurgen Klopp. Former goalkeeper blamed Jurgen Klopp for Loris Garris's errors.
Oh, goodness
Xhaka.
me.
They're right, though. You did blame him.
No, I did not.
You said
Stop trying to wind me up. Stop it.
You said he's brought a blade quickly. He's got it in his head, and therefore that's the mistakes that he made.
How's that blaming Jurgen Klopp?
Well, because of his tactics. If you told him to play slowly, it'd be fine.
Yeah, okay. Stop trying to wind me up. You know better than that.
It says it here.
Yeah, that's
It must be true.
So what percentage of blame do you put at Klopp's door?
0.
But you said it was his tactics.
No, I did not.
You did.
The tactics are fine.
Right.
Karius made a mess of it.
Oh.
The tactics were
If
fine.
there was a different coach, Karius would have made that mistake.
There was a different coach, Karius wouldn't be playing.
Why not? So it's Klopp's
Not good
fault
enough.
again for picking him.
Probably that's where it all
You're
started.
anti-Klopp. Xhaka. It's unbelievable.
See?
You got really angry there, Shaq.
I'm going to get myself some tickets to see the Yard Goats, get there and strangle you.
Right.
In the Yard Goats Stadium.
Raf wrote a book on Klopp.
Hey.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, Raf wrote, there you go. See, look at him. Not happy with you, Xhaka, as well. Willing for him to be sacked.
Okay.
Hey, you're really getting aggressive.
I know, he's getting very angry in his old age. It's the grey hairs. Why is the Chelsea board, Raf Honigstein, taking so much time to relieve Conte? They were super quick to sack Ancelotti back then, so what has changed?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I can think of a couple of reasons. One might have to do with Roman Abramovich, the Chelsea owner, being a little bit preoccupied at the moment, well-documented visa issues, are perhaps not quite in the mood to fire a coach and have discussions about a successor. The other more pragmatic and maybe more banal reason is that Chelsea want to first get the next guy in and maybe leave themselves the possibility open of sticking with him if they cannot get a suitable replacement. I think the negotiation with Sarri are still going on. Laurent Blanc, I think, has thrown his hat in the ring, but I think he would be very underwhelming appointment. And Chelsea still think that despite all the drama and quite difficult relationship that he has, Conte, with the board and also with the players, he still might not be the worst option to stick with him for another year. So I just think they want to keep that possibility just on the table for a little bit longer until they have somebody else lined up.
Meanwhile, sticking with coaches, Sid, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good a fit is Unai Emery for Arsenal?
Right, well, it depends what Arsenal want, and obviously I'm not someone who follows a lot of Arsenal, but one thing is for sure, Unai Emery will do a lot of the work that simply has not happened at Arsenal in recent years. Some of the tactical work, some of the intensity, some of the forcing players to do rather more than just occasionally pass the ball quite nicely. So in that sense, he fits very well. Obviously, how easy it is to impose this on players when the communication is more difficult, when the culture has been what it has, that would be my doubt. You asked for a 1 to 10, I guess we're looking at a 7 or an 8.
Oh, it's high. Wow. Arsenal going to win the Premier League.
Raf keeps coughing. Raf keeps coughing.
That's what I said, according to the Mirror.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Players you think should have been in their national teams for Russia 2018 but were left behind?
Nangolan.
Rabiot.
Raf?
I would have liked to see Mario Götze simply for romantic reasons. I think it's quite harsh that he didn't make the cut.
He's such a romantic.
Hey, Raf is a romantic.
When I think romance, I think Raf.
Yeah.
I met Raf for the first time.
And how was that?
You know, he's one of those journalists that see it as quite normal.
Oh.
Not geeky like some others.
I'm sorry, what?
I just want to say to Ali, when I think of Romans, I also think of him. So the feeling's very much mutual.
Well.
That's beautiful.
Tell you what.
Sid, national team?
Well, if I'm following Raf's line, do I want Bobby Charlton and Jeff Hurst in the England team? That would be the romantic choice, wouldn't it? From the Spanish point of view, there's not actually a huge... Well, if you're putting him in because he scored the winning goal when they won the World Cup, I mean, that's pretty much all we've got. I mean, come on, be fair here. England haven't got many other options in terms of World Cup goal scorers.
I see what you're saying about Sid. He is kind of nerdy, isn't he?
What is he saying about
angry?
me?
And angry.
Hang on, what's going anyway, from a Spanish point of view,
No wonder the Mirror blocked
the only real... dear me, best thing that ever happened to me.
Right. Oh, here we go.
We didn't get an answer.
Do you want an answer?
Did Sid answer? God, I've switched off.
The only one really that's missing from the Spain squad, I suppose, in terms of a big name, is Morata.
Right, here we go. Mourinho is portrayed as finished despite winning 2 trophies and finishing second, but Klopp is praised for losing finals and get 4th back-to-back. Klopp now spent 300+ million, so when does he have to win the league or challenge for the trophy?
Well, he did just play Champions League final. Is that not challenging for a trophy?
Well, according to Edgo Get Gareth,
Well,
Manchester United fan.
well, I can see where the things are coming from there.
But Shaka, you were saying that Manchester United had a better season than Liverpool, didn't you?
Oh.
How are you feeling about that? Is this one of those things where you have to be stubborn about?
No, I'm cool with it.
So why are Liverpool ahead of United in your power rankings?
They had a better couple of weeks. Better couple of weeks.
Jack. There's so many holes in your explanations.
Last season.
That is it.
Shaq, just offer the easy answer. You don't need a couple of weeks. They got to the Champions League final. Man United didn't. I mean, that's very simple, isn't it?
Yes, but
Thank you, angry nerd.
But
Thank you.
he said that United had a better season than Liverpool.
Well, he doesn't know what he's saying. Does he?
I know he doesn't. You're right about that.
More of this nonsense tomorrow. Be sure to join us. Just a reminder, we are with you.
I'm not coming tomorrow.
Why
I'm
not?
staying home tomorrow.
Yes.
Why is that?
I had enough abuse today.
We are on 7 days a week. Shaka still somehow is only working 4.
Or 3. Or 3. Maybe
I'm coming tomorrow just for that. I'm coming back.
No,
tomorrow.
you're not. No, you're
I
not.
know. That was a lie.
You've got
Yes,
phone
you
calls to make.